Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. UMKC basketball entered another quote-unquote new era when they named Billy Donlon their new men's basketball coach in March. The Roos have had very sporadic success in the 2000s, with only a pretty good run under Coach Rich Zavosic that was marred by a lack of postseason tournament success. The program has never played in the NCAA tournament, and that will be the charge of the engaging 42-year-old Donlon. A suburban Chicago native and the son of a coach and an educator, Donlon has had a very successful run in his career as an assistant and a head coach. The vagaries of the profession are keenly seen in his firing from Wright State after a 23-win year in 2016. After stops as an assistant at Michigan and Northwestern, he comes to Kansas City with high hopes for a program that seems to be a bit of a sleeping giant. A fine player in his day, his story and the way he tells it are big smiles. My conversation with UMKC coach Billy Donlon is next. We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Get a refreshing change of your expectations of a sports bar and restaurant at the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. Matt Llewellyn's welcoming spot at Clinton Parkway in Cassold covers all the bases, like their own handcrafted beers and all the televisions you need for great sports viewing. But it's the large, varied, and delicious menu that stands apart. From a favorite of mine like the awesome ahi tuna appetizer to great sandwiches, outstanding pizza, and truly fantastic entrees, the 23rd Street Brewery has it all. Matt and his friendly staff make it that much more enjoyable. Food until 10, fun until late. The 23rd Street Brewery is a can't-miss stop when you are in Lawrence. Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256. Billy, you're a Chicago suburb kid. What was it like being little Billy Donlon in Northbrook, Illinois?
Really lucky. You look back, my parents... I'm the son of a coach and the son of a teacher. My mom did the most important job. She stayed at home and raised the three of us, two older sisters, Heather and Therese. My sister Therese died tragically 2 years ago in a terrible accident. But, my parents did a lot to live where we lived in the suburbs of Chicago to put us in one of the best public school systems in the country. And you don't really realize that as you're going through it, and as you look back on it, just really appreciative. I had a great life as a kid. My parents, even though I think coaches' sons or kids, daughters, sons are a lot like, I think military's kids or preachers' kids. They say, you either love it and that becomes your life. So if you're in the military family, you go join the military, or you don't want anything to do with it. And for me, I fell on the side of the tracks where I wanted to make coaching my life and basketball my life, and it really is a passion. It's not a job. It's not a career. It's a vocation. I've been really lucky to spend my entire life in the gym because it's kept me out of trouble. I found something at a young age that I knew this is what I wanted, and a lot of people struggle with that through their life, and that's never been a struggle of mine in terms of knowing what I wanted to do. So growing up was great. Certainly had a couple times or two where I didn't behave, but the discipline in our family was tremendous, and so my mom and dad got me on the right track quickly. And just the last thing I'll say on it is, the only rule we had in our household was you had to do something. You had to work. My parents weren't going to just let me be that mall kid where after school you went to the mall and you hung out with your friends. And
right.
So one time, I would go to the gym every day at Northwestern when my dad was coaching at Northwestern, and after I'd get to watch them practice, and then I'd work out for 90 minutes with my dad and come home, do homework, eat, go to bed, and repeat the next day. That was my life. And, I think in like the 7th grade, maybe the 8th grade, I got a little bored with it, and I wanted to do what some of my friends did. And so I felt like maybe I was playing basketball because this is what my parents really wanted me to do, was play basketball. So I decided to see if I could call their bluff. And I said, hey, you know what? I don't want to play basketball anymore. And my mom and dad, they didn't flinch. They said, okay, no problem, but you're going to get a job. And if you don't want to play basketball and if you don't want to work every day at that and try to earn a scholarship, then you're going to get a job. So for whatever reason, I even was allowed to semi-pick the job. So I worked at a Dannon yogurt shop in Evanston, Illinois. Right, Danny, and that lasted about 2 weeks. And then so it lasted a month because after 2 weeks I had to put my 2 weeks in to go back to just playing basketball every day at Northwestern. So I learned pretty quickly difference between working a real job and getting to play basketball.
Were you always focused on basketball, or did you play other things?
Played baseball, and my grandfather, my mom's dad, my grandfather played basketball and baseball at St. John's and was a really good baseball player. And I would play baseball through the 8th grade. I stopped in high school, and my grandfather, God bless him, swore that was my best sport. But when you have one of the best coaches in the country in your home in basketball, you probably should stick to that. And so I played one sport. I never went to prom. Because the girls at my high school were really they knew the difference between a good-looking guy and a not-so-good-looking guy. So it just was my life. I didn't go to dances. I was just kind of that guy that played basketball every day whenever I could. After practice, I'd go to the local gym at night and play pickup with the men. And, again, come home, do homework, and go to bed. I just loved to play. But, yeah, basketball was my sport. But I love sports. I'm a diehard Boston Red Sox fan and a diehard New York Giants fan. That might get me in trouble here in Kansas City. But, I'm loyal to my teams. But excited to be here with the Chiefs and the Royals.
How'd you happen to become a Red Sox fan? So
my dad, we moved to
Coaches
Massachusetts.
Are all over the place.
Yeah, we're all over the place. My dad coached at Providence College with Coach Pitino.
Okay.
And Coach Pitino took me to my first ever major league game, and it was at Fenway, and they played the Tigers, and Jack Morris pitched for the Tigers. I don't remember who pitched for the Red Sox, but, you go to Fenway.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm from Boston, so I know.
So you know the deal. And my dad coached at Methuen High School in Massachusetts, which is not far from Boston.
Right. Well, I grew up at Framingham, actually.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
So we I love the Red Sox. My dad hates baseball. So if you so he's a diehard. I think he would rather see the New York Giants win than UMKC win. And no disrespect to us, but he wants the Giants to win in the worst way. And so I'm a Giants fan because you follow your dad's teams,
right.
And that's how that happened. And love both those teams.
Great coaches, and you called your dad a great coach, and I'm sure he is. Are driven. And does that make for challenges in a father-son relationship, or did it for you?
It did. I didn't listen to him for a long time. I was a young, arrogant kid that thought he had all the answers, and you don't know what you don't know. It's a great line. I've always I don't know if he's the first to say it, but Coach Beeline would say that repetitively. When teaching guys at Michigan. They don't know what they don't know. You can't blame them. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So my father never pushed us to play. He's a first-generation American. He really valued hard work. And there was a lot of pressure in my family. My oldest sister, Heather, who's 6 years older, has an NCAA record that'll never get broken. She shot 58% from three one year at Fordham University. And I think that'll stay forever. It's a really hard one to break. And there was a lot of, she was so good. She was my idol growing up. And between that, my dad being a great coach, my grandfather having been a really good player, my uncle played at the Naval Academy, you just, you kind of felt like you had something to live up to, and that helped. But I probably should have been more coachable when I was younger, especially with my dad. But I grew out of that, that immaturity that you probably go through in middle school and junior high. But my dad was great with it. I mean, he was great with it. What you learn from the best coaches is their ability to know the difference of when to be patient and when not to be. And my dad had that down to a science.
You had a very difficult challenge when you became a high school player. You were basically one I don't know what you call it, one big class behind Chris Collins.
Yeah.
So he was going when you were coming in, and he was a legendary player in high school and, one of the best players in the country, and obviously would go to Duke. And you had to follow in his footsteps and be that same player, playing the same position and everything. What was that like, or were you just confident enough to think you could do it?
I think you just
you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. I knew I had known Chris. I first met Chris at a Northwestern game. I was a fourth grader. He was a seventh grader, and we kind of always we didn't live in the same town then, but we kind of stayed in touch. I went to his dad. I mean, the Collins family's been amazing to us. I went to his dad Doug's camps in the summers as a kid. But you certainly, what you saw was, the way I looked at it is Glenbrook North had never been any good until Chris Collins showed up. And in especially his last year, he had created a culture of winning. And it wasn't, I didn't really try to compare myself to him because it wasn't going to happen. He's a McDonald's All-American. He went to Duke, and you'd hoped he'd have a good career. But what you didn't want to do was let the program down. And, Chris and John Shire, who also went to Duke, went to Glenbrook North. So when I see Chris and John, they always put the three up because they tell me I'm the third best player in the history of the school.
Pretty good company,
which
though.
Not bad company, but I always tell them I have the best winning percentage of those three guys. So I try to get back at them a little bit, but you wanted to keep the standard or try to move the standard in terms of winning from what Chris had accomplished. But man, I mean, and I said this when I took the Northwestern job. Chris Collins was in the height of the Michael Jordan era in Chicago. I mean, it was the height. And kids in Northbrook and Glenview and Glencoe and Deerfield, which are big suburbs up in the northern part of Chicago, when kids were practicing basketball in their driveway, they weren't thinking about being Michael Jordan. They were thinking about being Chris Collins. And that shows you the impact he had on that area. He really changed suburban basketball like nobody else in Chicago.
And, that is, like I said, you seem to have embraced it. You were an outstanding player in high school, and your teams were good. Tell me about some of the highlights of all that winning.
To play, Illinois was as close to Indiana back then, where Indiana only had one class, so there was one state winner, and Illinois only had two classes.
Wow.
And the big class, was the AA class, was probably 80% of the high schools. And then the smaller class was 20%. For us to make it to the Elite Eight 2 of my 3 years, my senior year we went 29-2. I was blessed with really good teammates. We had a couple other Division I guys on the team. They were a little younger, but they were really good players. My claim to fame is in the coaches poll. In the coaches poll, I finished second in Mr. Basketball in the coaches poll. That's important because my high school coach is a legend, Brian James, and he really politicked for me. But I finished second in Mr. Basketball, I think, in the coaches poll because of Coach James and Kevin Garnett won it. So, I try to tease Chris a little bit, like, hey, you wouldn't have won it the year I came out either. But it was just again, when you're young, when you're playing for a really good coach. I don't care how old you are, but you don't really know how good they are until you become an adult. And playing for Brian James, I think Chris would agree, was really as much. He played for the all-time best in Coach Krzyzewski, and I played for a great college coach in Jerry Wainwright. But playing for Coach James was amazing. Our practices were like college practices, and you